Well, good evening, this is Houndog Steve wishing you a very pleasant evening, and this is a follow-up to my last video, again from the Ottawa Citizen, and this story again is absolutely unbelievable. And when you take these two stories side by side, wow, what kind of country are we moving into? Canadian military wants to establish new organisation to use propaganda, other techniques to influence Canadians. And here they are. Hear no evil, see no evil, and do no evil. The Canadian Forces wants to establish a new organisation that will use propaganda and other techniques to try and influence the attitudes, beliefs and behaviours of Canadians, according to documents obtained by this newspaper. The plan comes on the heels of Canadian Forces spending more than $1 million to train public affairs officers on behaviour modification techniques of the same sort used by the parent firm of Cambridge Analytica, as well as a controversial and bizarre propaganda training mission in which the military forged letters from the Nova Scotia government to warn the public that wolves were wandering in the province. The new Defence Strategic Communications Group will advance national interest by using defence activities to influence the attitudes, beliefs and behaviours of audiences. Oh, we're the audience now, are we? The happy, willing, cheering, laughing, chuckling audiences. According to the document dated October 2020, target audiences for such an initiative would be the Canadian public, as well as foreign populations in countries where military forces are sent. The document is the end result of what Chief of the Defence Staff General John Vance has called the weaponization of the military's public affairs branch. Well, thank you. We just want a weaponized public affairs branch in the Canadian military, directing it against the Canadian public. The document is in a draft form, but work is already underway on some aspects of the plan, and some techniques have been already tested on the Canadian public. But the Office of Defence Minister Harjit Sajjan said Sunday that the plan, at least for now, is not authorised to proceed. Sajjan has raised concerns about some of the activities related to such influence and propaganda operations. No such plan has been approved, nor will it be, Florian Bonneville, Sajjan's press secretary, said after being asked by this newspaper about the initiative. And of course we all know that a denial is code for it's happening, it's going forward, it's underway right now. But a series of town halls were already conducted last week for a number of military personnel on the strategies contained in the draft plan. The report quotes Brigadier General J. Jansen, Director General Military Public Affairs, who stated the motto, "Who dares wins," is as applicable to strategic communications as it is to warfare. The initiative also proposes the creation of a new research capability established to analyse and collect information from the social media accounts of Canadians, non-governmental organisations, industry and the news media, according to the report. The Canadian Forces have already tested that capability earlier this year. This newspaper reported that a team assigned to a Canadian military intelligence unit monitored and collected information from people's social media accounts in Ontario, claiming such data mining was needed to help troops who were to work in long-term care homes during the CV outbreak. The initiative, aimed at people's Facebook, Twitter and Instagram accounts, involved collecting comments made by the public about the provincial government's failure to take care of the elderly. That data was then turned over to the Ontario government with a warning from the team it represented a negative reaction from the public. Military officers see nothing wrong with such collection of data, as it is already in the public domain on social media accounts. They concede the team should not have been assigned to military intelligence, but under the new plan it will be controlled by the military's public affairs branch. Different name, same job. Come meet the new boss, just like the old boss. But others have questioned how collecting information on the public's views concerning Ontario Premier Doug Ford was even relevant to how the Canadian Forces were to care for elderly residents. In addition, concerns have also been raised on why the military turned over such data to Ford's government and what became of it. Sajjan requested an investigation be done into the data collection and has also limited, at least temporarily, some of what the military calls influence activities. The military, however, noted in the plan that it will consult the Federal Privacy Commissioner before it launches its collection of Canadians' online information. The Public Affairs Enhancement Plan reflects the military's leadership's view that they can shape and direct the attitudes of Canadians if the right techniques are applied. I'm going to say that again. That is unbelievable. That statement is just incredible. The Public Affairs Enhancement Plan reflects the military leadership's view that they can shape and direct the attitudes of Canadians if the right techniques are applied. Unbelievable. Defence Stratcom will focus on effects and outcomes among key audiences and will provide clear direction on aligning actions, efforts and resources in pursuit of strategic objectives. And we'll never know what those objectives are. You and I, our pay scale is not high enough, the plan added. Some in the Canadian Forces already attempted to conduct a trial run of such techniques. This newspaper reported in July the military had planned a propaganda campaign aimed at heading off civil disobedience by Canadians during the CV outbreak. That campaign was to use similar propaganda tactics to those employed against the Afghan population during the war in Afghanistan, including loudspeaker trucks to transmit government messages. The propaganda operation was halted after concerns were raised about the ethics behind such techniques. Yeah. The Public Affairs Enhancement Plan, I love that, don't you? Enhancement Plan, also calls for harnessing the social media accounts of select Canadian Forces staff to push out pre-approved government and military messages to the public. Although the social media activity would be seen to be coming from the personnel accounts of military personnel, it would actually be Canadian Forces public affairs officers behind the scenes crafting and coordinating the messages. The enhancement plan also calls for improving links to military-friendly academics and retired senior military staff so they can be used to push out approved Canadian Forces messages either on social media or in their interactions with journalists. Sarjan had originally approved the weaponization of the Public Affairs Initiative started in 2015, along with a separate but significant expansion of military propaganda capabilities for various units. The Liberals outlined in their 2017 Defence Strategy Policy the need for the Canadian military to become more involved in propaganda and information warfare. But attempts to influence the public haven't always worked out. Last year, the Department of National Defence and the Canadian Forces planned a public relations campaign to counter what bureaucrats and officers believed were false claims that the military had a problem with racists in the ranks. But that plan had to be scuttled after alleged racist and far-right sympathisers with links to the military became involved in a series of high-profile incidents undercutting the message of the PR scheme that the severity of the issue had been exaggerated. As part of that PR effort, dossiers were created about journalists the military believed would cover the issues of racists in the ranks, including CBC's Murray Brewster. The dossier about Brewster, who has since broken a number of stories about the far right in the Canadian Forces, contained transcripts of his interviews with senior military staff and the warning: he's familiar with the defence system and his reporting, whilst factual, often emphasises the mistakes and shortcomings of DND and the CAF. Bonneville said the minister did not and will not authorise the creation of the dossiers on journalists. She did not, however, provide an explanation on why the files were created by Canadian Forces staff. In addition, under Sarjan's watch, an invitation only, did you get that? An invitation only Facebook page has been created where serving and retired military and DND public affairs staff share information about journalists. There are more than 400 participants on the Facebook page, which is officially supported by the DND, that's the Department of National Defence. Well, isn't that wonderful? Well, that's where your tax dollars go to be wasted so they can spy on the Canadian public and try and alter and change their ideas so that they can pull them in line with government policy and initiatives. So when these sort of stories get out into the media, is it any surprise, is it any wonder that the people absolutely have no faith or trust in their leaders. This is the sort of thing that you expect in Afghanistan, in a third world country, in China, North Korea, all of those places that we send troops to protect against those kind of governments. What kind of insanity is it that we are bringing that kind of behaviour into our country to spy on honest, free Canadian citizens? People, for God's sake, wake up and see what the heck is happening here. So if you've enjoyed these two articles, please like, comment and subscribe below, and don't allow your rights to be stripped away from you. In the meantime, this is Houndog Steve signing off, wishing you a very pleasant evening, and we'll talk very, very shortly. You take care now. Bye.